Hi, I'm Will Johnson, president of Woodmaster Tools here in Kansas City, Missouri. And today we're in our underground production facility, and we've wanted for a while to do a walk-around video on our Model 4000 four-side planer molder. We actually had a guy who had one of our competitors' machines, and he wanted to move up to our machine, and we said, well, that's awesome, but can we borrow your machine before you sell it and maybe do a side-by-side walkthrough of our machine and a competitive machine. So that's what we're going to do today. So here are the two machines. Now, in fairness to my competitor, this is a smaller model of their machine, but the principles of their machine and the way it works and ultimately the advantages of the Woodmaster are always going to be the same. The biggest advantage we feel of the Woodmaster machine is right here, Made in USA. I don't know if Made in USA matters to people anymore. It matters to me. I think it should matter to you. I mean, if you're a person who wants to make America great, you should support American manufacturing. But above and beyond that, there are specific advantages to being made in USA other than supporting American workers and supporting American industry. That's an advantage, I think. I hope you do too. But beyond that, the advantage of Made in USA is that everybody who builds this machine is right here in Kansas City, Missouri. The guy who designed this machine is right here in Kansas City, Missouri. People who operate this machine every day are right here in Kansas City, Missouri. And what that means is when you have a question, when you need something, when you're trying to figure something out as you operate your machine, or maybe if you have a problem with your machine, you have knowledgeable people. You have people here in Kansas City, Missouri, on the other end of the phone line who know these machines in and out, who designed them, who build them, who use them. And that is an advantage that none of my competitors, whether it's machines made in Poland, machines made in Taiwan, machines made in China, none of my competitors can offer you that advantage of knowledge. So that is the strongest thing about the fact that these machines are made right here in Kansas City, Missouri, right here in the USA. So a little real-world story about Made in USA has to do with the motors on these machines. Our motors are US-made motors. We have them on the shelf. We have them in stock. They're heavy motors. They shouldn't burn out. But at some point, 10 years down the road, if they do, we have them in stock. But they're also commonly available. You can get them pretty much at any motor supply shop, and that's important. A little story, our customer, one of the reasons he's switching over to Woodmaster is he'd burned out a motor, and he couldn't get another one. It's not a commonly available motor in the United States. It had to be ordered from Europe, and it took forever, and he was down. These are not hobbyist machines. If you're going to buy this machine, or if you're going to buy my competitor's machine, you're going to be doing some kind of production. And you need to be able to depend on the machine, and if your machine has an issue, you need to be able to depend that you can get what you need, the help you need over the phone, and the parts you need to solve that issue. And one of the things you always want to be able to say to your customer is yes. Yes. Your customer comes, can you do this for me? Yes. And what we offer over our competitor, I believe, is a larger capacity machine and a machine that's easier to adjust to large capacity. So that just gives you a broader range of requests, a broader range of jobs that you can say yes to. And yes is the key to your business. So I want to get into these machines a little bit and look at that issue first, just sheer capacity of material and ease of handling different capacities of material. We're going to look at them, open them up, and learn a little bit about that. First, I want to talk about two-side planing, because although they're all four-sided machines, a lot of times you may just want to do that two-side aspect of the machine. So the 4000 will do 18-inch wide on two sides planing. So you can do an 18-inch wide plank on this machine. Our competitors' two machines, one is limited to 16 inches, one is limited to 11 inches on two-side planing. So again, that's just one of the many things you're going to do with this machine, but it's important. So the four-sided capacity of these machines is extremely important. Again, for a four-sided job, when a customer comes to you, whether they want molding, flooring, whatever, what is your capacity? What are you able to say yes to? And again, with Woodmaster, that's a bigger number. The width capacity for the Woodmaster with Foresight is 17.5 inches. So that means, for instance, if for some reason somebody wants super wide tongue and groove, 17.5 inches wide, you can do that, and certainly anything below that. My competitors' machines have a smaller capacity. That's just the fact, unfortunately. It's either 10.25 or 13.75. You know, you're not going to be able to say yes to 14 inches. On the smaller machine, you're not going to be able to say yes to 12 inches. These are jobs you can say yes to with the Woodmaster that you can't say yes to with our competitors' machines. Now the height, the size of how tall of a piece can these machines do is the same. All these machines can do 4-inch tall piece, okay? But Woodmaster typically has a much deeper depth of cut than our competitors. In our case, that depth of cut is 1.25 inches. So you can cut 1.25 inch profiles, 1.25 inch log cabin siding. You can take off 1.25 inches of wood in a pattern. Our competitors, that number is 3/4 inch. So it's a 1/2 inch smaller than what we can do. So that's a 1/2 inch of a job that you can do with our machine that you can't do with their machine. It's a 1/2 inch advantage, gives you more versatility. Again, lets you say yes. Okay, so we're talking about how deep we can cut, or how big of a piece the machines can cut. And as I say, both can cut a 4-inch piece. So let's talk about side cutters. Let's talk about what we're doing on the side and how our side cutters work versus our competitor side cutters. I'm just going to grab one out of here and kind of show you. It's pretty easy to get them out. Worth noting, again, that this is not metric. It's SAE, so that matters to a lot of folks, I think. Kind of convenient. Our competitor is metric. So just another little thing. You take this out, and then you take out, and this is our side cutter. And as we'll see, it's different from our competitor's cutter. Our competitor has 2 slots, we have 4. The reason we have 4 slots is because we can leave the knives for S4S, we can leave those in all the time. You don't have to change them, you don't have to take them out if you're doing molding. You can put your molding knives in, and they will cut further out beyond the scope of the S4S just straight knives. So it's just a convenience thing. It just makes it a lot easier to go back and forth from different operations. Again, when you're saying yes to that customer, you just are able to make that transition easier. The other thing I love about what we do is we do have corrugation on our knives, and that's important for 2 reasons. First of all, it makes calibration much easier because you have multiple knives. You know, when you have 2 knives, those knives have to be sticking up the same amount. And so when you have corrugation, that makes you able to calibrate them with each other much more easily. And actually, calibration in general, we're going to see, is an advantage of our machine. And again, that saves you time. It reduces mistakes. It's just an advantage. If you can get your machine set up accurately, more easily, that means you're doing a better job and getting a better result for your customer. So this is a 2-inch head. We also have a 4-inch head, a full 4-inch head right here. That's our 4-inch head, so that if you're doing a big piece, you can put in a big head. Our competitor, the way they achieve that is by stacking 2 heads, and I just don't like that as well. Again, you have a calibration between the 2 heads. I feel like potentially it's a safety issue. I just don't like it. Speaking of safety, the other thing I like about our heads, we've got a little bit of relief right there, so in the unlikely event the screw would get loose, you have some room for error, for lack of a better term, and we also have 2 screws all around. And again, that means if one screw potentially has an issue, you have a backup screw, and my competitor doesn't offer that. Again, safety matters, especially if you've got employees. You know, you want safety. Not that you don't want it for yourself, but you doubly want it for your employees. So there's a lot of safety things that we've incorporated in this machine, because ultimately machines with spinning knives can be dangerous, and we want to be sure that we mitigate that in any way that we can. Okay, so let's look at our competitor's machine. First of all, I want to emphasize this is a good machine. These are good folks. But again, when we set out to make our machine, we looked at this machine and we said, how can we make a better machine? So we admire this machine. It's a good machine. We just feel the Woodmaster is a better machine. Now, but let's look at their side cutter. Again, similar, obviously. You do have a single screw versus multiple screws, and then these knives actually are set into pins and that's how they calibrate their knives versus the corrugations that we use. They don't need to get that extra distance out into the machine because if you want to do molding, obviously you have to take these knives out entirely and replace them with your molding knives. But you know, it's an adequate system. One thing I like about our machine, you may have noticed as you look at these heads, is the thickness of the knives. If you're running production, these knives are going to get hot. A thicker knife is going to dissipate heat better, stand up longer, also has more inertia, which means the machine's not going to have, once it's up to speed, the machine's not going to have to work as hard to cut. Our knives are actually twice as thick. Our corrugated knives are 5/16 versus 5/32 with our competitors' knives. So on this machine, the way you calibrate your knives on your back cutter, which is going to be your main surface molding, which is incredibly important, it's fairly straightforward. You use these little lines to calibrate the knives one to the next. It's a good system. It's a standard system. You see it across the industry. But when we're talking about being very accurate, when we're talking about having a very high-end product for your customer, even these lines have widths. There is variation there, and most likely you're going to have to do a few test pieces and tweak knives and move them from side to side to get them all lined up with each other. You've got 2 slots here for your molding knives, and you know, it's not going to be immediate. There's a little bit of slop in that system. And we actually have a patented system that Barry Bland, who is the guy who designed this machine and came up with all this for us, did, and I'm going to show that to you now. Okay, so calibration on the main cutter head on this machine. There's 2 things to remember. First of all, again here, we have corrugated material. So the vertical calibration is extremely accurate because of the corrugation. On our competitor's machine, basically, you bottom the knife out and tighten it down and hope that they match up. But in the tightening process, sometimes you tweak it the wrong way and the knife comes up, and again, you know, you'll eventually get it right, but there's really no accurate calibration system on that machine for vertical beyond bottoming it out and hoping for the best. On this machine, because we have the corrugation, you have a vertical calibration system to get your 2 molding knives even with each other. We have a patented device on here, and what you do is you put your first knife in and you line, this has a little magnet in it, so you line that up just right. You tighten it down, okay, and then move this out of the way. That knife normally would be staying there. You move to your next slot, put your knife in, and you have it already calibrated. Makes you much more accurate, much quicker changeover, just a better system. Once your knives are locked down, evened up, this just slides out of the way. So it's a patented system on the Woodmaster, only available on the Woodmaster, and it's, you know, a tangible advantage over competitive machines. And accurate knife placement is what translates to accurate workpieces, and accurate workpieces are what translates to a satisfied customer. So another reason this side-to-side accuracy is so important and our machine has such an advantage, if your knife is even a tiny bit off from the other knife, they are taking on a disproportionate workload. That becomes a balance issue for your machine. It affects your bearings, but most important, it affects your knives. One of your knives is working harder than the other knife, which means it's going to burn out faster. So that side-to-side accuracy is important for the quality of your work, but it's also important for the lasting of your knives, of your machinery. It's super important, and a tiny difference can make a huge difference in that in your machine over the long haul, and in the short run in your tooling. Okay, so we've gone through a lot of the nitty-gritty of the inside of the machines and the advantage of the Woodmaster. There's some other just little grab bag service and convenience things I want to talk about. One is feed speed. We emphasize on our machines variable feed rate is so important. You need to be able to adjust the feed rate of the machine to the challenges that the workpiece is putting in the machine. So if it's easy, you can go fast. If you need a lot of cuts per inch for a complicated cut or a deep cut, you need to slow the machine down. All of these machines have variable feed. However, on the Woodmaster, your variable feed is right here at your control panel. It's a rheostat on an electric feed motor. And so you know, if you need to slow down, you need to speed up, you do it right there. You can adjust that feed and tweak that feed even when the machine is not running. So again, that's a convenience thing. As you're doing setup, you can adjust your feed without everything else being on. Not so on my competitor's machine. There's no adjustment here, and in order to adjust it, you actually have to walk across what we call the danger zone of the machine. You have to walk across the danger zone of the machine in order to adjust your feed speed over here. So that's just, you know, it's a convenience thing. It's much easier and quite frankly much safer to be able to adjust your feed speed on the control panel. So that's a convenience and a safety factor that we believe our machine offers over our competitor. As well, if you look around this machine, you see a lot of panels and a lot of bolts, which is fine. But if you ever need to repair something, if you ever need to get at a sprocket or a motor or whatever, there's just a convenience factor there, which if you look over at our machine, you'll see we've got a lot more accessibility to the inner workings of the machine. Just again, there are going to be times, any machine, I don't care whether it's our machine or our competitor's machine, there are going to be times where you have a problem. Like that happens, it's machinery. Question is, what happens when you have a problem? And again, as I said earlier about our Made in USA, we have parts availability and knowledgeable help because we build these machines here. The guy who designed this machine works for us. The guy who puts these machines together works for us. And the salespeople have all used this machine. So we have a level of knowledge to help you with. We have accessibility and parts availability to help you with that we really believe our competitors can't match. And our confidence in our machine is so strong that we put warranty backing on this machine like nobody else does. First of all, there's a 60-day, no questions asked, money-back guarantee. So if you get the machine, it's not what I said it was, you don't like it, send it back. We'll refund your full purchase price. We probably won't refund the freight. That's kind of the deal, but it's better than what my competitor offers. Second, 5-year warranty on the entire machine. Manufacturer's defects, if you abuse the machine, if you try to, you know, take a fence post and make it into a piece of crown molding, no, that doesn't get warranty. But if you use the machine the way we say it, you should use it. If you put good material in and something fails, we'll replace it. A lot of times, actually, literally guys call us and they say, I need 3 parts. 1 part's a warranty part and 2 parts, I broke this thing because I'm an idiot. It's an honor system. That's how the warranty works. It's very old-fashioned, very old school, very non-corporate. I like to say we're a company with large company resources and small company attitude. You call up, you have an issue, we have the knowledge, the resources, and the motivation to help you with that issue. Those 3 things, service, capacity, calibration, those 3 things are Woodmaster exclusives, they're unbeatable, and they're what make the Woodmaster 4000 your best choice in a 4-side molder. Thanks.